This is things you might not have heard, and I am Jay Cleveland Payne. And in the queue today, 10 stories from the weekend you deemed as conversational. You vetted them as good stories to talk about, covering information, politics, current events, and pop culture. We'll give you the full vetting process at the end of the headline presentation. We're talking about Mike Johnson, who had a miracle basically happen this weekend. Talk about Neil Young, who basically had me change my whole perspective on what he was talking about. And we're giving the love to Donkey. Plus, we have 7 other stories in the queue, including updates on how we're doing an investigation for Las Vegas and New Orleans, because those stories are just getting darker and darker. We'll explain the vetting process, as I said, at the end of the headline presentation, but make sure you stick around for the whole thing and get that presentation. So we need you to help us do these stories. In the meantime, keep these in your pocket, keep these in your head, ready to go when you're ready to go. The website, this is theconversationproject.com. The email address, the conversation inbox at gmail.com. Email us with your comments, complaints, concerns, and check out the website for all the things you need to learn about us, and all the calls to action we'll give you basically send you to the website. Let's get into the show for today. If I've not said the date yet, it is Monday, January the 6th, 2025. I have the right year up there. I've got the right day up there. And we are into what's back to the normal week, back to a normal progression. So we're got some things that we tried out in the last 2 weeks where I had a lot of vacation time to play with stuff and be a little late. Now it's going to get a little pithy and try to stay on time. I'm not sure pithy will happen, but we're going to try to stay on time. Starting off in Las Vegas. The soldier behind the Tesla explosion at Trump Hotel left a note calling it a wake-up call for the U.S. Now, on January the 1st, with the world first of 2 attacks on the first day of the year, a Tesla Cybertruck exploded outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas. The death of the driver, 37-year-old Army Master Sergeant Matthew Levensberger, and about 7 or 8 people injured in the actual melee. Now, what's really interesting about this one, the build of the Cybertruck essentially prevented the explosion from going worse than it could have. Now we're learning a lot more about Levensberger, and we're not getting good news. He was a decorated Green Beret from Colorado Springs, Colorado. He's been in the Army since 2006. He was deployed in Afghanistan, other places like that, and was dealing with mental health struggles, PTSD essentially, and some issues with I guess a brain bruise, maybe a bit of a something from head trauma, and was recently separated from his wife, like within like weeks or days of this incident. Cybertruck was rigged with explosives, gas tanks, and camping fuel, which Levensberger detonated over after taking his own life. He basically shot himself, and then the explosion happened. As I said, the build of the Cybertruck kept the explosion from going out. It went up and saved lives and saved property in that case. Notes found on his phone so that this was a wake-up call for the United States, expressing dissatisfaction with the country's leadership and direction. He denied the actions were an act of terrorism. This was an act of one man trying to get attention, people saying things were good. He acted alone. There is the incident in Las Vegas that, in New Orleans that people thought were concerning, but it wasn't that one. Essentially, he acted alone. He doesn't have any ill will toward Donald Trump or Tesla CEO Elon Musk, even though he blew up the Cybertruck in front of Trump's building. It was just a message. Just getting people's attention. It was just a way to get Mr. Trump, Mr. Musk's attention by trying to destroy their property. And the big concern we're dealing with is, of course, PTSD and the risk going on there. Now, Levensberger was actually, he's still in the military, or was in the military. He was on leave. He's, I guess, he's stationed. He was in overseas. I guess his unit was deployed there or preparing for something. Came home for leave, apparently to deal with his marital issues. And we have the resolution that we have. 2025, Donald Trump has pledged to do a lot for military service folks, a lot for veterans, fixing the VA going forward. We'll see how well he can actually do that. But this is something for PTSD and especially veterans issues, military personnel's issue as a big deal going forward. This is a wake-up call that this must be dealt with going forward. Another person with a military background, although he was long separated, was the attacker in New Orleans, that being one Shamsu Din Abjabar. He was 42 years old. He was a veteran and carried out the French Quarter attack where he drove his truck onto the sidewalk and killed people with the truck, then got out of the car and started firing shots at bystanders and was taken out by police pretty quickly. He shot 2 police officers in the process. They're on the mend. About 14 people actually died from their injuries from the incident. He is the 15th person being shot on the scene, and also there's still people who are still fighting for their lives in hospitals there. Now, the story and update in this one was that that trip to New Orleans was not a freak accident. We thought that maybe this was a secondary target picked because something else wasn't there. When the initial, let's just say disinformation, when you don't know what's happening in the beginning, you're trying to gather things. How did we get here to New Orleans? New Orleans was a target. It was especially targeted because the attacker spent a couple trips in New Orleans wearing smart glasses, essentially taping what's going on. The Meta branded smart glasses allow you to tape and just record things, take pictures while looking like you're just wearing regular glasses. He did not live stream the event, which is one thing people are very glad for, but he did take time to live stream and record things on his trips doing his surveillance for New Orleans. This is a really disturbing addition to the story because it shows that, hey, this was a planned attack. This was a plan of terror. He did pledge his allegiance to ISIS, so this was based off wanting to show off the ISIS folks what he could do. In that case, he probably knew he was going to die as well. There were explosives that were set aside that he had a remote detonator to take care of. There was the driving on the sidewalk. They were shooting people in the street. And there was planning using technology. Now, using glasses that allowed you to take pictures out using your hands may be a bit of a stretch in saying he's using mass technology to get the goods on things going on, but this is what he did. He didn't go around with a DSLR and take pictures of spots. He didn't walk around with a notebook going on. He captured everything digitally using the Meta smart glasses. We're not saying this is the biggest tactic coming in from Al-Qaeda, but we are saying that you need to keep an eye on these things. Now, in separate notes and separate things I've done, I've talked a lot about those little wearable cameras and wearable portable devices for recording stuff so you don't lose out on notes. And of course, this is the second iteration of the lens from Google Lens thing where they weren't so obvious because the big old, the big board thing on the side of your face. These glasses have small little jewels in them or cameras, or they have microphones and things that can take up everything, just like the little pendants you wear that do the same thing. Our security, our freedoms, our technology is starting to get a little scary, get a little extra Black Mirror on us. So let's be careful before we start walking around with smart glasses and having to have disclaimers on our forehead saying, I might be recording you going forward, because if you don't know you're being recorded, who knows what could happen. Let's start with real news, if you will, stuff that's actually updated things going from the weekend going forward. And this was a big deal on Friday. The first meeting of Congress happened. The first day Congress can get some jobs done. The Senate, no big deal. They show up, they just do some things, they wave, they get to work. But the House has to actually elect a speaker because the speaker is third in line for the presidency. If Donald Trump or J.D. Vance happen to have issues, Mike Johnson will be our next president. And Mike Johnson is our next Speaker of the House again after he won on the first vote. However, we had to resend the actual story because he won on the first vote after apparently losing on the first vote. The House representative from Louisiana was reelected as Speaker of the House. Now, what happened was, as votes went down, there were many Democrats all voted for Hakeem Jeffries. They were a lockstep. There were 3 people who voted for people who were not Mike Johnson. One of them one voted for Byron and Donalds. I can't remember the name of the person who actually was the one that's left standing. 9 Republicans skipped. And then at the end, they said, well, if we missed you, come back. They all came back and voted for Johnson. Between the time when they were counting the votes, a phone call was made to 2 of the Republicans, because one guy was like, I'm not voting for him, deal with it, because you can only lose 1 vote. That 1 vote was lost. A phone call from Trump, apparently on the golf course, to convince them that all will be well. Mike Johnson said he made no side deals. He offered nothing up in return. There was no dealings going back and forth, other than a talk from Donald Trump saying, hey, let's get the stuff working so we can go forward. What happened was, since they didn't gavel the vote to make it official, everyone thought they did. No one could tell what was going on. The 2 went back to the chamber, changed their votes, and Mike Johnson gets to win for the Speaker of the House. Again, that's how it happened. So on the first vote, with an asterisk, just like Joe DiMaggio, he is the Speaker on 1 vote going forward. It's history making, and we have a whole lot going on where it seems like people are right now are willing to stand this kind of line up and do what President Trump wants to do. The next big test will be in the Senate as they have to, prove all these nominations that he's throwing out there, with Pete Hegseth, I think, being one of the first ones up this week. So we shall see. Joe Biden's doing a lot of work going out the door. He gave out a lot of medals, a lot of participation medals, if you ask me, to show that the truth and the justice for all stands for various people, including folks like Hillary Clinton and, Liz Cheney. He also blocked the Japan-based Nippon Steel bid to buy U.S. Steel, which I guess the robot editor back and forth got confused because they do that. The AI does that. Apparently, U.S. Steel didn't want to be bought because U.S. Steel is basically backing the non-acquisition of the thing because of, well, let me back up and read what the robot editor says this time. It was a $14.9 billion acquisition of U.S. Steel by Nippon Steel, and President Joe Biden actually blocked it. He cited national security concerns and need to protect domestic steel production. Now, what happened was Nippon Steel actually added in a little poison pill for temporary purposes, gave them the chance to veto any changes in sales or production on U.S. steel in the U.S. for the U.S. for about 10 years. So if they let the thing go, they would promise that for 10 years, the U.S. can get whatever they want to. They say what they want. They do what they want. If Nippon wants to change stuff, they can't do that. But at year 11, it's all there. Facilities in Gary, Indiana, and Pennsylvania, Mon Valley, where Nippon had pledged to put more investments in there as well, also led to some things that they were going to push going forward. But there was uncertainty with the steel workers because the steel workers kind of wanted the jobs, but U.S. Steel, the actual people, is confusing. U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel say the move is unlawful. That's people who run the companies. The steel workers, the unions, were a little worried about it because they're not sure what the Japanese are going to do, but the workers actually want to work. It's a really bigger, complicated thing than it is, and national security is out there as well. The future of U.S. Steel remains uncertain as apparently we can't stay profitable making steel. However, for the moment, it's not being sold out, and they're giving U.S. Steel, the U.S. part, a chance to fix whatever it needs to fix itself. Skip Bayless, Joy Taylor, and Fox exec named in workplace misconduct lawsuit. A former Fox Sports hairstylist, Nushin Faraj, has filed a lawsuit alleging sexual harassment and workplace misconduct involving several network personalities, including Executive Vice President Charlie Dixon, Joy Taylor, and one Skip Bayless. Unwanted advances from Bayless, the former co-host of Undisputed, also financial propositions from Bayless, basically paying her for sexual favors or alleging to offer money for sexual favors, about $1.5 million for the deeds, and asserting that the rejection of his advances, Faraj faced job-related threats from Bayless, which also got pushed around by Fox Sports host Joy Taylor and Charlie Dixon, basically facilitating what was going on through things after Bayless didn't get his way. Faraj was employed from Fox Sports from 2012 to 2024, initially part-time, later full-time as a hairstylist working behind the scenes. She alleges that she was terminated in 2024 for fabricated reasons, which were related to her refusals and complaints about her refusals. A Fox Sports person stated that the network takes these allegations seriously, but declined to comment further due to pending litigation. It's a 42-page lawsuit just to say Skip Bayless was mean to me and other folks were mean as well. It was filed in Los Angeles Superior Court, and unspecified damages and also unpaid wages and overtime and seeking class action status. We shall see, now that it's in court, what we shall see. Not quite working the pithy yet, but we're going to get there. We want you to very quickly understand how we work things for the Conversation Project. If you're not new here, you know how this thing goes, and you know we're going to tighten up pretty soon. If you're new here, what we offer you here in this thing called Things You Might Have Heard on this day, 10 stories. The rest of the week will be 8 stories from a past iteration. Tomorrow's be today's stuff. And these are stories that you deem as conversational. We'll explain that after we finish the headlines. But if you're enjoying what you're doing, or will enjoy it at the end, we need your help to grow this conversation project, to grow this thing. Like the videos that you're watching, either this one or if you're watching us in our feed, the clips going by, so more people see that they're good videos, more algorithm love, and more people watching going on. And I can see I picked the right stories and staying on the right cadence. Today, cadence not quite there. Share it with like-minded people who may enjoy this type of commentary and news coverage. And if you're not already subscribed to our feed, wherever you're watching this one comes up live. This particular one comes up live on X, on Facebook, and on YouTube. Subscribe. We need your love. We need your attention. We're kind of shallow, but we need people in the queue, people to engage with our stuff. So like, share, and subscribe so we have more people who hit the option of liking, sharing, and subscribing and joining in the fun. Back to the news. This one is on a funner thing. United Airlines is going to launch Elon Musk's Starlink Wi-Fi on its flights coming in the spring. So this is a new announcement coming for in-flight connectivity for passengers based on Elon Musk's Starlink internet services. That's the satellites in the sky, so you don't lose connection. Airline will commence testing this February, and they plan to launch it in the spring on its Embraer E-175 aircraft to start off with. They're going to equip 2-cabin regional fleets with Starlink by the end of 2025 to introduce the service on major routes by the end of the year. Starlink Wi-Fi will be available at no cost to the Mileage Plus members, enhancing the in-flight experience for frequent flyers. It's a satellite-based internet service that promises high-speed, low-latency connectivity, enabling such things as streaming, browsing, and gaming during flights. The initial positions for United Airlines among the first U.S. carrier is a big deal, as Starlink is trying to make sure it stays connected. Also, similar agreements with Hawaiian Airlines is coming up, and regional carriers JSX. So many airlines are getting into the game of getting people actual internet connectivity in flight, not the sort of weird thing they've been using so far. United thinks they got to play to keep themselves relevant by using Starlink. Elon has to play by keeping things relevant by using Starlink. Where are we getting relevant? Using Starlink. Here's where I had to do a bit of it's not really mea culpa on my end, but I had some comments back and forth in some of the clips I did. I put this out as a clip Friday, not knowing whether to make it into the link or not. It probably would not have made it into the link if it weren't for the change into it. But essentially, Neil Young wasn't going to play the Glastonbury 2025 festival because the BBC was in charge of it. And then I got a comment saying, well, he fixed that. And I had a comment that said, well, he didn't fix it, before I put it out there, so it's still good. But he fixed it, so we're talking about it. I'm not going to redo the video. But Neil Young confirms he's actually going to headline the Glastonbury Festival after, quote, error in information prompted him to pull out. So, yes, he actually did step away from the thing. He was going to headline the Pyramid Stage at Glastonbury Festival 2025, and he actually did announce he was going to go away, citing concerns with the festival's corporate associations, particularly with the BBC. He initially describes Glastonbury as a corporate turnoff and expressed reluctance to perform under such conditions. However, after reassessing the situation and clarifying the extent of corporate involvement, Young reversed his decision, stating that his earlier withdrawal was based on incorrect information. He expressed enthusiasm about returning to the festival, noting his fond memories of past performances. This is happening in June of 2025, the 25th to the 29th, with Neil Young being one of the headliners. Other folks also include Basement Jaxx, Olivia Rodrigo, Harry Styles, Sabrina Carpenter, Chappell Roan, Eminem, Alanis Morissette, and Simple Minds. So it's going to be a big deal, and it will include the 70-plus-year-old Neil Young out there performing, still rocking in the semi-corporate world, if we give it. But yes, he did pull out of the festival, but now he's back. You pull him out, they put him back in. That's what happened. Let's talk money, technology, and maybe a chance for the robots not to overtake us, as robotics company Boston Dynamics unfortunately is laying off the human employees because they're burned through cash. Skynet may has a little bit longer to evolve itself because the people who build it can't get paid to work on it. And this is because Boston Dynamics, the renowned advanced robotic company, laid off 45 employees, about 5% of its workforce, to basically make up some money for bills. This affects nearly every department and impact employees from severance packages to continued benefits until their time runs out in their employee packages. But the CEO, Robert Platzer, acknowledged that the company is burning through cash at a rate that exceeds our commercial progress to date, necessitating an operational streamlining for sustainable growth. Despite the challenges, they're doing well with the robots. They are scaling their Spot robot, the dog robot, and do more industrial things. Although the Atlas robot is basically being shut down, the humanoid robots are basically being turned for other things, or actually working towards, I guess, more humanoid robots. The original robots are being phased out. But Boston Dynamics, which is owned by Hyundai Motor Group, has significantly expanded its workforce since 2021. But difficulties in basically selling these things, other than on TikTok videos, means they have to cut some staff. 5% doesn't seem like a lot, but the salaries and the work from these people is extremely talented, extremely high, extremely well served. And so losing these people will help to save us from the robots in the future. Maybe the future Skynet actual person who will turn the switch was fired, and he's going to, go start his own Google or something and make it worse. I don't know. Excuse me. Coughing fit. Let's go back to South Korea, where authorities were blocked from arresting impeached President Yoon in tense standoff. This thing keeps going on and on as a experience of significant political crisis, as my robot editor calls it, involving the president Yoon Suk Yeol, who may or may not be impeached, may or not be in power, may or not be there. Maybe he's hiding in a lair someplace. But on the 3rd of December, President Yoon declared martial law amid a budget dispute with opposition-dominated parliament and was swiftly annulled by the National Assembly. After that, his impeachment came on December 14th, charges of rebellion and abuse of power. So they have an impeachment level. And when he's impeached, they can go arrest him and put him in jail. So he confined himself to his presidential palace in Seoul. His security forces stood outside and they got a warrant for his arrest. And on the 31st of December, they went to go pick him up. But there was a standoff. There was pushing, there was shoving, the security forces and police forces, the protesters for and against. It was a whole big kerfuffle that turned into something to see. Now, the warrant expires today on the 6th. So after today, they just have to get a new warrant, essentially. But they know what happened the first time, and it was a push against from one, security forces, and two, people who actually are pushing for Yoon's to stick around and be in charge. Mass protests across the presidential residence and the streets are happening all over the place. You're getting a chance to see, I guess, democracy, or the chance to have freedom of speech in progress, as both sides of this one are doing the protests more or less friendly, except when they're showing up to actually basically arrest the guy in charge. Anthony Blinken, who was basically out of a job in 15 days, has took some visits to South Korea to kind of talk some things over, one of his last trips overseas, to see what he can do about that. Couldn't do much about that particularly. And much love, giving his flowers, pouring one out for Donkey, as Shrek fans mourn the donkey that expired Eddie Murphy's character as Donkey in Shrek, died at the age of 30. Perry, the miniature donkey who inspired the character Donkey in the Shrek films, passed away at the age of 30 due to lamentis, a painful hoof disease. He was born in New York in 1994. Perry was brought to Palo Alto, California in the 1990s to serve as a calming companion for polo ponies. In 1997, became a cherished resident of Barron Park, where he lived for 27 years. DreamWorks animators studied Perry's movements and expressions to model Donkey, voiced by Eddie Murphy in the 2021 movie Shrek. Perry's mannerisms, such as head tilts and bouncy trots, were directly reflected in the animated character. Despite his significant contribution, Perry reportedly received only $75 for his role and was not credited in the film. So Hollywood, you need to fix that. In his later years, Perry faced health challenges, including arthritis and Cushing's disease, leading to increased medical expenses. The Palo Alto community recognized his cultural impact and local significance, providing support, including a $10,000 grant from the city council to assist with his care. Perry's passing was announced by the Barron Park Donkey Project, which plans to hold a memorial in his honor. He is remembered not only for his role in cinematic history, but also as a beloved figure in the Palo Alto community, bringing joy in visitors, especially to children who cherish their interactions with him. Much love to Perry, and much love to Shrek, which I guess has 2 or 3 more Shreks coming out soon as well, which will not be immediately influenced by Perry, but I guess Perry in the digital age, digital world, will always be there for our own donkey. We're now at our teaser segment, where I talk about how we got the stories for the Conversation Project, how the feeds work, how you deem these stories conversational. Our feeds, Facebook and X, facebook.com/This Is Conversation Project, and x.com/th_conversation. On those websites, those are our sites on those websites. Visit the websites. When you visit Facebook and X anyway, visit them and see what we have going on. See what's coming up naturally in your feeds, and go see what we have. They're posting out there. We post news stories every 50 minutes or so for you to engage in. And you see some there that you like or maybe dislike, engage in it appropriately. Show us your like or dislike so we know what stories are worthy of conversation. It's not just technically what you like, but stories that really need some more in-depthness. They can be by comments, be by hitting the emoji face. Make sure you're reading them and sharing them as well. But the more engagement the story gets, better chance you have of talking about it. Today, 10 stories presented, 30 stories of the top 90 stories of the weekend, which they were chosen from. The rest of the week, 8 stories from the top 15, top half of 30 stories of the day. It's that simple. You want to make sure your story's in there. Make sure you see it, engage in it. And if you don't think I got the right stories, send me an email. The conversation inbox at gmail.com. Let me know what stories you thought should have been there, and we can comment on whether the story actually did make it into the top half or whether I chose something over another one because I thought that one was more equitable, if you will. Like I said, we take the top stories, then we pick the ones that we think make the best sort of narrative, put them in the best narrative order from there, and go forward. Today, on Monday, we're teasing the story to talk about possibly tomorrow, come Tuesday, which is Biden urges Americans must not allow the history of January 6th to be rewritten. Now, what's that all about? Today is January the 6th. Today is the day that Congress will verify and ratify and make the election results count. 4 years ago, on January 6th, there was a rally by the person who lost the election to say, no, we actually won the election. So y'all go to the Capitol and tell folks what we thought. And then we had the insurrection. You can disagree on the words, but we had the insurrection. And Donald Trump had 4 years of legal trouble, which are now going away. Biden is saying that this thing happened. This thing wasn't great. And the attempts to make it a day of love is just rewriting history in the bad way. Now, remember, history is written by the people who win the wars. And in this case, Donald Trump essentially won this war, and he's going to give a chance to rewrite history. The biggest issue is this history was only 4 years ago, and most of us remember what actually happened and aren't glossing over it. Biden wants to make sure that people actually remember this one, and it gets logged as what happened, not in some overly dreamy access of a freedom rally, but it really was mass people storming the Capitol trying to stop an actual legal piece of our Americana. Will we talk about this tomorrow? It's up to you. Go to our feeds on Facebook and X and engage in the story. And if you see this as a story worthy talking about, make it one of the top half stories for the day, and we'll more than likely put it in there. We are going to continue with ground news. After the attacks on January 1st, I scrapped my other advertising plans for the week, basically going, day by day instead of week by week, and just went with ground news. And we're going to do the same thing for today and possibly tomorrow because there's a lot going on. And there's a lot of things happening, a lot of things that are being, let's say, alternatively fact. And so we want you to have a way to know which facts are more alternative than others by going to Ground News. We have a special that we're working with them. Ground News will give you half off all of their paid programs at this is conversationproject.com/ground news. This is conversationproject.com/ground news. Now, they'll give you basically 5 articles in a month time, 30 days, based off your cookies in your browser. But if you want to get full details and get the full love of Ground News, go ahead and get one of those subscriptions, half off for a full year. Now, what you get is the bigger picture. You get to uncover the truth from where you are and where they are. And I say that specifically because what Ground News does is it aggregates local, national, and global stories and allows you to see the sources, highlighting which stories are missing outlet coverage. So stories that may be covering more for a right-hand perspective or from a left-hand perspective, you can see that. You can literally see what actual entities, what actual companies, what actual news sources are covering it, and you can deem for yourself whether you want to believe what they're saying or watch what someone else is saying to see if it's more valid or sometimes less valid. And the blind spot features was really great for this one because you can see instantly what stories are being covered exclusively by folks on conservative bents and exclusively by folks on liberal bents, so that if you're in a silo, you can see what stories they're not covering or stories you're covering a whole lot more, or and vice versa, stories that they are covering and stories that they're not covering, they're holding back a whole lot more. So you can get a more balanced view. It's about balance. It allows you to be the judge of the news which you should be, but allows you to see more of that news and more perspectives to get a full wide range of news. Use our link. This is theconversationproject.com/ground news for a chance to get half off their subscriptions, all levels of subscriptions, because news is going to be extremely important, information extremely important, and the truth, based on how you want to see it, is going to be extremely important for the upcoming years. The Conversation Project lives online at this. It's theconversationproject.com. Go to our website and find many things to do. We're going to keep this short because we're running out of time, but not so pithy today. The Conversation Project's website has links to more sponsors. They are all affiliate links. If you buy from them, we get a small commission. Links to our partnerships page. We have a setup where you can donate to us, contribute to us every single month to help us keep things going. We need those donations and contributions. You can also join a membership group on side of YouTube, which is actually discounted from the memberships on Buy Me a Coffee. So there's that. You can find past episodes and see what it is all about that we do. You can find links to other places where we are, also on TikTok, also on Threads, and of course our email newsletter, which we want you to get a hold of so we can get to you anyway. If YouTube shuts us down, if Facebook dies away, we can get to you through email. That's always there. And of course, audio podcasts. We're changing up some podcast links, so that may be different in the new year, but we still have the audio version. If you don't want to see me, you want to like drive and not have to see me do the stuff, you can listen to the audio version as soon as this thing is done. Also, just more about us and contact us. Email us at the conversation inbox if you want to get more details, and we can chat about things going forward. The most important thing you can do is, of course, follow us on our feeds and engage in the stories so you know what stories to talk about. We are now done with the Monday edition of Things You Might Have Heard, Monday, January 6th edition of Things You Might Have Heard. We will definitely be putting out some feelers, some information, some links on how things are going for the certification of the election and other news stories as they come about. As we get more information on Texas and Las Vegas, we'll get you those things as well. And it's up to you guys to tell me that they are conversational. It's that simple. You follow us in the feeds, you engage in the stories, you and the internet out there just hitting those things with those impressions and those clicks and those likes. And we will talk about the ones that you guys want us to talk about. It's that simple. It's not just me rolling out a list of stuff. It's not the Fox News folks putting out their agenda for the day. It's your agenda, stories you want to talk about. And the stories for Tuesday that happen on Monday, you'll tell me what to talk about